The late afternoon sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the historic chapel, casting kaleidoscope patterns across the polished marble floor. Marcus Blackwood adjusted his cufflinks for the third time in as many minutes, a nervous habit he'd developed long ago during his first major business presentation. Today, however, he wasn't nervous about quarterly reports or merger negotiations. He was standing as best man at his closest friend's wedding, and the weight of responsibility sat heavier on his shoulders than any billion-dollar deal ever had. "Stop fidgeting," Thomas whispered beside him, his grin wide despite his own obvious nerves. "You look like you're about to present to the board, not stand beside me while I marry the love of my life." Marcus managed a smile, straightening his already perfect tie. "Just making sure everything's perfect for you, Tom. You only do this once, if you're lucky." "Coming from the man who swore he'd never do it at all," Thomas chuckled, his eyes drifting toward the chapel doors where his bride would soon appear. It was true. Marcus had built an empire by the age of 35, turning a small tech startup into a global conglomerate that had revolutionized how people connected across continents. He'd graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune, been named one of the world's most eligible bachelors more times than he could count, and had attended enough charity galas and society events to last a lifetime. But love? Real, genuine, soul-deep love? That had always seemed like a luxury he couldn't afford, a distraction from the singular focus that had made him successful. The string quartet began playing, and Marcus straightened, watching as the bridesmaids began their processional. The first was Thomas's sister, elegant in champagne silk. The second was a colleague of the bride, someone Marcus had met briefly at the engagement party. And then the third stepped into view, and the entire world seemed to tilt on its axis. She was blonde, her hair caught up in an elegant twist that left a few tendrils curling softly against her neck. The champagne-colored dress draped perfectly over her figure, modest yet somehow breathtaking. But it wasn't her physical beauty that stopped Marcus's breath in his chest. It was something else entirely. The way she moved with an unconscious grace, the gentle smile playing at her lips, the way her eyes swept across the gathered guests with warmth and genuine joy. When her gaze met his, just for a moment, Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside him. It was like being struck by lightning and wrapped in sunlight simultaneously. His heart, which had beaten steadily through hostile takeovers and contentious negotiations, stumbled over itself. Time stretched and compressed, and in that fraction of a second, Marcus understood why poets wrote sonnets and artists went mad trying to capture beauty on canvas. She looked away, continuing her measured walk down the aisle, and Marcus realized he'd forgotten to breathe. He drew in a shaky breath, his analytical mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. He didn't believe in love at first sight. It was irrational, impractical, the stuff of romantic comedies and novels. Yet here he stood, his entire worldview crumbling around him because a woman he'd never met had looked at him for 3 seconds. "That's Olivia," Thomas whispered, noticing Marcus's fixed stare. "Claire's best friend from college. Talented architect, I think. Claire says she designed that new community center downtown that won all those awards." Marcus barely processed the information. He was watching Olivia take her place across from him, her hands loosely holding a bouquet of pale roses and peonies. When the bride appeared, resplendent in white lace, Marcus dutifully turned his attention to his friend's face, watching Thomas's eyes fill with tears of joy. But his awareness remained tuned to the woman standing 15 feet away, as if some invisible thread now connected them. The ceremony passed in a blur of vows and readings, rings and kisses. Marcus performed his duties flawlessly, producing the rings at the right moment, signing as witness, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about champagne silk and golden hair, about a smile that had lingered in his memory despite its brevity, about eyes that had seemed to see straight through the armor he'd spent years constructing. At the reception, Marcus found himself searching the crowd, telling himself he was merely ensuring everything ran smoothly. The venue was spectacular. A historic estate on the river, with gardens that seemed to tumble endlessly toward the water. String lights were beginning to twinkle as dusk approached, and the air smelled of roses and jasmine. He spotted Olivia near the garden's edge, standing alone and gazing out at the river. She'd removed her shoes, he noticed, and was holding them in one hand while her other hand held her champagne glass. Something about the gesture, the way she'd abandoned formality to feel the grass beneath her feet, made his chest tighten. Marcus found himself walking toward her before he'd made a conscious decision to move. As he approached, he searched for something clever to say, some charming opening line that would make her smile. But when he reached her side and she turned to look at him, all his carefully constructed sophistication abandoned him. "Hi," he said, and immediately wanted to kick himself. 35 years old. More money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. And the best he could manage was hi? But Olivia's smile widened, reaching her eyes and making them crinkle at the corners. "E yourself. You're Marcus, right? Thomas's best friend and best man." Guilty as charged, he gestured to the empty space beside her. "Mind if I join you? It's a bit overwhelming in there." "Please do. I was just taking a moment to breathe. I love weddings, but they can be exhausting." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and Marcus found himself mesmerized by the simple gesture. "You gave a beautiful toast, by the way. I could tell every word came from the heart." "Thomas and I go back 20 years. We were roommates in college, started our first business together in his dorm room." Marcus smiled at the memory. "He talked me out of dropping out sophomore year when I got my first big investment offer. Said I'd regret not finishing my degree, and he was right. He mentioned you were inseparable. It's nice, seeing a friendship that's lasted so long." Olivia sipped her champagne, her eyes returning to the river. "Most people drift apart after college. Life gets busy, priorities shift. What about you and Claire?" "College roommates, freshman year. She walked in on move-in day wearing a vintage band t-shirt and carrying a guitar, and I knew we'd be friends. We've been through everything together: bad boyfriends, worse jobs, family drama, career changes. She's the sister I never had." They fell into comfortable silence, watching the river flow past, silver in the fading light. Marcus was acutely aware of her presence beside him, the subtle scent of her perfume, the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other in the grass. "Can I ask you something?" Olivia said suddenly, turning to face him. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Anything. Why were you staring at me during the ceremony?" Heat crept up his neck, and Marcus Blackwood, who had faced down hostile board members and cutthroat competitors without flinching, felt himself blush. "I was that obvious?" "Only to me, I think." Everyone else was watching Thomas and Claire. Her expression was curious rather than offended. Her head tilted slightly as she studied him. "I'm not complaining. I'm just curious." Marcus considered deflecting, making a joke, retreating behind the walls he'd built so carefully. But something about Olivia made him want to be honest, even if it made him vulnerable. "I don't know how to explain it without sounding crazy," he began, choosing his words carefully. "I don't believe in love at first sight. I've never believed in it. It's not logical, not practical. But when you walked down that aisle and looked at me," he trailed off, shaking his head, "I felt like I'd been waiting my entire life for that moment without knowing it." Olivia's eyes widened, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Marcus braced himself for polite laughter, for a gentle letdown, for the confirmation that he'd made a complete fool of himself. Instead, she said softly, "I felt it too." The world seemed to stop spinning. "You did. I thought I was imagining things. You're Marcus Blackwood. I've seen you on magazine covers, read about your company. You're brilliant and successful and way out of my league. I figured you looked at everyone that way, like you were trying to memorize them or figure out how they tick." She laughed nervously. "But then during the ceremony, I kept finding myself looking at you instead of my best friend, which is terrible bridesmaid behavior, by the way." Marcus felt something unfurl in his chest, warm and bright. "So I'm not crazy." "We might both be crazy," Olivia countered, but she was smiling. "I don't know you at all. You don't know me. This is a wedding. Everything feels romantic and magical. and we're probably just caught up in the moment. Probably, Marcus agreed, but he didn't believe it. Neither, he suspected, did she. Marcus, they're cutting the cake. Thomas's voice carried across the garden, breaking the spell. Marcus turned to wave acknowledgement, then looked back at Olivia. I should go. Best man duties. Of course, she seemed disappointed, and that small sign of regret made his heart soar. But after? Could we talk more? Maybe take a walk? The words came out rushed, uncertain. So unlike his usual confident manner. Olivia's smile returned, soft and genuine. I'd like that. The rest of the reception passed in a pleasant haze. Marcus performed his duties, helped with the cake cutting, ensured the toasts ran on schedule, danced with Thomas's mother and various aunts. But through it all, he was aware of Olivia, catching glimpses of her laughing with other guests, dancing with Thomas's groomsmen, helping Claire adjust her dress. Finally, as the evening wound down and the older guests began to depart, Marcus found her again. She'd retrieved a light shawl to drape over her shoulders against the evening chill, and had somehow become even more beautiful in the soft glow of the string lights. Ready for that walk? He asked, offering his arm. She took it without hesitation, and they strolled away from the reception, following a path that wound through the gardens toward a small gazebo overlooking the river. The music and chatter faded behind them, replaced by the gentle sounds of water and wind rustling through leaves. Tell me about yourself, Marcus said as they walked. Thomas said you're an architect. I am. I specialize in sustainable community spaces, libraries, community centers, affordable housing developments. Nothing as glamorous as the skyscrapers you probably work in, but I love it. Her passion was evident in her voice. I believe buildings should serve people, not the other way around. They should be beautiful but functional, impressive but welcoming. The community center downtown, that's yours, isn't it? The one with the green roof and the glass atrium. Olivia's face lit up. You know it? I make a point of knowing good design when I see it. I actually considered buying the lot next to it for a new regional office. But I didn't want to overshadow your work with some generic corporate building. Marcus smiled. My team thought I was crazy for passing on the location. That was you? The acquisition that fell through last year. Olivia stopped walking, turning to face him. The community center board was so relieved. We were worried about losing foot traffic, about being dwarfed by something commercial. I couldn't do it. Your building is perfect for that neighborhood. It belongs there. Putting a glass and steel tower next to it would have been like, I don't know, like hanging a neon sign in an art gallery. They'd reached the gazebo, and Olivia settled onto the bench inside, patting the space beside her. Marcus sat, closer than strictly necessary, drawn to her like gravity. That's incredibly thoughtful, she said quietly. Most developers wouldn't think twice about overshadowing existing structures. I'm not most developers. Marcus stretched his legs out in front of him, finally allowing himself to relax. I made my money in tech, remember? The real estate is just a side project, a way to invest some of the profits. But I believe in doing things right, in considering the impact beyond the bottom line. Claire mentioned you're a big philanthropist. Schools, hospitals, arts programs. Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. I have more money than I could possibly spend. It seems wrong not to use it to help people. There are plenty of billionaires who don't share that philosophy. Then they're missing the point. He turned to look at her, finding her eyes already on him. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it. Not just buildings or companies, but communities, opportunities, hope. Olivia was quiet for a moment, studying him with an intensity that made him feel transparent. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more, I don't know, polished? Calculated? You're on those most eligible bachelor lists every year. I imagined someone smooth and charming but ultimately superficial. She smiled ruefully. I'm sorry. That's an awful thing to say. No, it's honest. And you're not entirely wrong. I can be smooth and charming when I need to be. Business requires a certain amount of performance. Marcus found himself being more honest than he'd been with anyone in years. But it's exhausting, always being Marcus Blackwood, billionaire CEO. Sometimes I just want to be Marcus, the guy who drinks too much coffee and falls asleep reading architectural digests. You read architectural digests? I find them soothing, he admitted with a laugh. Is that weird? It's perfect, Olivia said softly. They talked for hours, losing track of time as the moon rose higher and the stars emerged. They discussed everything: childhoods and dreams, favorite books and worst fears, embarrassing moments and proudest achievements. Marcus learned that Olivia had grown up in a small town in the Midwest, the daughter of two teachers who'd instilled in her a love of learning and a commitment to service. She'd put herself through college and graduate school with scholarships and part-time jobs, and she still volunteered every Saturday at a youth center teaching kids about design and architecture. In turn, he told her about his own journey, the son of a single mother who'd worked 3 jobs to give him opportunities, the scholarship to MIT that had changed his life, the risks he'd taken and the failures he'd endured before his success. He told her about the loneliness of always being seen as a bank account rather than a person, about the difficulty of knowing who genuinely cared about him versus who wanted something from him. That must be isolating, Olivia said, her hand finding his on the bench between them. The touch sent electricity through him, but it was the compassion in her voice that truly undid him. It is, he admitted. I have Thomas, thank God. He knew me before the money, before any of this. But beyond him, most of my relationships are transactional in one way or another. That's heartbreaking. It's reality. Marcus turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. But tonight, talking to you, I don't feel like Marcus Blackwood the billionaire. I just feel like me. Good, Olivia said firmly, because that's the only person I'm interested in getting to know. The night grew late, and eventually they heard voices calling their names. Thomas and Claire looking for their best man and maid of honor. They walked back slowly, neither wanting the evening to end, still holding hands in the darkness. At the edge of the garden, where the lights from the house spilled out to meet them, Marcus stopped. Can I see you again? Not at some society function or business dinner, just us. I'd like that. Olivia squeezed his hand. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not impressed by money or status. If we're going to do this, I need you to be just Marcus, not the billionaire, not the CEO. Can you do that? It was a challenge and a promise, and Marcus felt something settle in his chest. A certainty he'd never experienced before. I can do that. I want to do that. They exchanged phone numbers, and Olivia rose on her toes to press a soft kiss to his cheek. Call me tomorrow. I'll call you tonight when I get home, Marcus countered, making her laugh. You're eager. I'm smitten, he corrected, no longer caring about playing it cool or maintaining distance. Olivia's smile was radiant. Good night, Marcus. Good night, Olivia. He watched her walk back to the house, his hand pressed to the spot on his cheek where her lips had touched. Thomas appeared at his elbow, grinning like the cat who'd caught the canary. Well, well, well. Looks like my wedding had an extra benefit. Don't start, Marcus warned, but he couldn't suppress his own smile. I'm starting. I'm absolutely starting. Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. I've known you for 20 years, Marcus, and I've never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at Olivia tonight. This is big. It's terrifying, Marcus admitted. Tom, I've built companies, negotiated billion-dollar deals, spoken to rooms full of world leaders. But the thought of screwing this up, of not being enough for her, that actually scares me. Good. Thomas's expression turned serious. That means it matters. That means she matters. And for what it's worth, Olivia's incredible. She's genuine, talented, kind, everything you deserve. I don't know if I deserve her, but I'm sure as hell going to try to be worthy of her. They returned to the reception to help with final cleanup and goodbyes. Marcus found himself looking for Olivia constantly, catching her eye across rooms, sharing small smiles that felt like shared secrets. When he finally left, driving his car through the dark streets toward his penthouse apartment, he felt different, lighter somehow, despite the weight of possibility pressing on his chest. True to his word, he called her when he got home. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm with amusement. "I thought you were joking about calling tonight." "I never joke about things that matter," Marcus said, loosening his tie and stretching out on his couch. "Hi." He could hear the smile in her voice. "Make it home safe." "I did." "You?" "About 20 minutes ago. I'm sitting on my balcony, looking at the city lights, thinking about tonight." "What are you thinking?" There was a pause, and when Olivia spoke again, her voice was softer. "That I might have just met someone extraordinary, and that I'm equal parts excited and terrified about what that means." Marcus's heart swelled. "I know exactly what you mean." They talked until nearly 3 in the morning, neither willing to be the first to hang up. Finally, Olivia yawned so hard her jaw cracked, making them both laugh. "I should let you sleep," Marcus said reluctantly. "Probably wise. I have a site visit tomorrow, today technically, and I should probably be conscious for it." "Olivia?" "Yeah." "Thank you. For tonight, for being honest with me, for seeing me as just Marcus. It means more than you know. Thank you for letting me see that part of you. Sleep well, Marcus." "You too. I'll call you tomorrow." "You better." Over the following weeks, they fell into a pattern. Marcus called every evening, no matter where he was or what meeting he was in. They met for coffee dates that stretched into lunch, dinner dates that lasted until the restaurants closed, walks through the city that covered miles without either of them noticing. Marcus kept his promise to just be Marcus. He picked her up in his regular car, not the chauffeured town car his assistant kept suggesting. He took her to neighborhood restaurants he genuinely enjoyed, not the 5-star establishments where photographers lurked. They went to art galleries and bookstores, farmers markets, and free concerts in the park. Olivia showed him a side of the city he'd forgotten existed, the hidden gardens and quirky museums, the food trucks with the best tacos, the vintage bookstore where the owner's cat sat in the window. She introduced him to her friends, normal people with normal jobs who treated him like just another guy, and he found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't in years. "You're different lately," Thomas observed one afternoon when they met for their weekly tennis match. "Lighter somehow." Marcus grinned, not even trying to hide it. "Olivia does that to me. Claire says she's just as smitten. Apparently she talks about you constantly." Thomas served, and Marcus returned it easily. "So when are you going to make it official?" "What do you mean? We've been dating for a month." "I mean officially. Meet the parents, go public. The whole thing." Thomas missed Marcus's return, shaking his head. "You're going to keep her a secret forever." Marcus paused, racket lowering. "I'm not keeping her a secret. I'm protecting what we have. The moment the press finds out I'm dating someone seriously, they'll descend like vultures. They'll dig into her past, photograph her constantly, scrutinize everything she does. I don't want to subject her to that." "Have you asked Olivia what she wants?" The question stopped Marcus cold. He realized. He'd been so focused on protecting her from his world that he hadn't considered whether she wanted that protection. That evening, when Olivia arrived at his apartment for their planned dinner Marcus was waiting with a question instead of a greeting. "What do you want from this?" he asked as soon as she walked in. "From us." Olivia set down her bag slowly, studying his face. "That's quite a greeting. What brought this on?" Thomas asked when we're going to make things official. Meet each other's families, go public with the relationship. And I realized I've been making decisions about us without actually asking you what you want. "Come here." Olivia took his hand, leading him to the couch. "Talk to me. What are you worried about?" Marcus sat, gathering his thoughts. "My life, my world. It's intense. There's constant media attention, public scrutiny, people wanting things from me. I've been trying to keep you separate from all that because it's exhausting and invasive, and I didn't want to subject you to it." "That's very thoughtful," Olivia said carefully. "But Marcus, I'm a grown woman. I can make my own decisions about what I can handle." "I know that. I do. But Olivia, once the press knows about us, everything changes. They'll photograph you constantly, write stories about you. Some true, some completely fabricated. They'll dig through your past, analyze your clothes, your career, your friends. People will approach you wanting money, connections, access to me. It's relentless. And you've been dealing with this alone for years. Olivia's expression softened. That sounds lonely. It is what it is. No, she cupped his face in her hands, making him look at her. It's not okay that you've had to navigate all of that by yourself. That you felt like you couldn't share your life fully with someone because of the burden it would place on them. I won't apologize for wanting to protect you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me choose whether I need protecting. Olivia smiled gently. Marcus, I'm not naive. I know dating you comes with complications. But I'm not dating you for your money or your connections or your penthouse apartment. Though this is nice, she added with a teasing glance around. I'm dating you because you're kind and thoughtful and brilliant. Because you make me laugh and challenge me to think differently. Because when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. Marcus's throat tightened. You make me feel human again. Like I'm more than my bank account or my company. Then let me in fully. Introduce me to your mother. Let me meet your colleagues. Take me to those boring charity galas you have to attend. Yes, it might be complicated sometimes, but I'd rather face complications with you than have everything be easy without you. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Your life will change. I'm sure. Olivia kissed him softly. Besides, I have a secret weapon. What's that? I'm really boring. I design buildings and volunteer on weekends. I don't have any scandalous secrets or dramatic exes. The press will lose interest pretty quickly when they realize how normal I am. Marcus laughed, pulling her closer. There is nothing normal about you. You're extraordinary. Sweet talker, but she was smiling, curling into his embrace. They took things slowly but deliberately. Marcus introduced Olivia to his mother first. A frank, no-nonsense woman who'd raised him alone and remained refreshingly unimpressed by his success. Margaret Blackwood had taken one look at Olivia, seen the way her son looked at the young architect, and pulled Marcus aside to whisper, "Don't screw this up." "I'm trying not to, Mom." "Try harder. That girl is gold, and you've been alone too long." Olivia met Marcus's mother and came away with stories from his childhood that Marcus had hoped would never see the light of day. But watching them laugh together, seeing his mother's genuine affection for Olivia, made his heart full in ways he hadn't known were possible. Next came Olivia's parents, Tom and Susan Carter, who drove up from their small town to meet the man their daughter had been telling them about. Marcus was more nervous for this meeting than he'd been for any business presentation. Desperate to make a good impression, he need not have worried. Tom Carter, a retired history teacher, spent the first hour quizzing Marcus about his company's encryption protocols and data privacy policies. When Marcus not only answered knowledgeably but engaged in a spirited debate about digital rights, Tom nodded approvingly. Susan, a retired librarian, was more direct. "Our daughter means everything to us," she said over dessert. "She's brilliant and kind and deserves someone who sees that." "I do see it," Marcus said seriously. "Every day, she amazes me. Her talent, her compassion, her integrity. She's the best person I've ever met." Susan smiled, patting his hand. "Good answer." As they were leaving, Tom pulled Marcus aside. "I don't care about your money or your success. What I care about is whether you'll be there for her when things get hard, whether you'll support her dreams even when they're inconvenient for you, whether you'll love her on the days when love is a choice rather than a feeling." "I will," Marcus promised. "I already do." Tom studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you." 2 months into their relationship, Marcus took Olivia as his date to a major charity gala. A black tie affair that would be heavily photographed and covered by society pages. It would be their public debut as a couple, and Marcus was more anxious about it than he cared to admit. "You're fidgeting again," Olivia observed as their car approached the venue. She looked stunning in a navy blue gown that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated. Her hair swept up to reveal the graceful line of her neck. I just want everything to be perfect. It will be. We'll smile, make small talk, eat overpriced food, and dance. Then we'll escape early and get pizza from that place you like. Olivia squeezed his hand. Stop worrying. How are you so calm about this? Because I'm with you. That's all that matters. The gala was exactly as Marcus expected. A blur of handshakes and photographs, small talk and champagne. But having Olivia at his side transformed it from an obligation into something almost enjoyable. She was charming and genuine with everyone they met, asking thoughtful questions and actually listening to the answers. More than one person commented to Marcus afterward about how refreshing she was, how different from the usual society crowd. When they finally made it to the dance floor, Marcus pulled her close, savoring the feeling of her in his arms. See? Not so bad, Olivia murmured against his shoulder. That's because you're here. Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple. Olivia, there's something I need to tell you. She pulled back slightly to look at him, concerned. That sounds serious. It is. Marcus faltered, the words catching in his throat. They were too soon, too much, too intense. But they were also true, and he'd promised himself he would always be honest with her. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I fell that first moment in the chapel. I don't know. But what I do know is that you've changed everything for me. You've made me believe in things I thought were impossible, made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need. I know it's fast, and if it's too much, I understand, but I needed you to know. Olivia's eyes shimmered with tears, but she was smiling. Marcus Blackwood, are you trying to make me cry in public? Is it working? Completely, she laughed, wiping at her eyes. You ridiculous, wonderful man. I'm falling in love with you too. I think I started falling when you told me about passing on that real estate deal because you didn't want to overshadow my building. Or maybe when you admitted you read architectural digests to fall asleep. Or possibly when you insisted on meeting my parents even though you were terrified. I wasn't terrified. You were absolutely terrified. You went through 3 shirts before settling on one, and you asked me 17 times if you should bring wine or flowers. Marcus laughed, the sound free and unguarded. Fine. I was terrified. Your dad is intimidating. He likes you, Olivia assured him. He told me you were a keeper, which is high praise from Tom Carter. They swayed together, oblivious to the other couples around them, lost in their own world. Around them, cameras flashed and people whispered, but Marcus didn't care. Let them talk, let them write their stories. He had Olivia, and that was worth any amount of scrutiny. The next morning, they were front-page news. Billionaire bachelor off the market? Read one headline. Marcus Blackwood steps out with mystery woman, declared another. The articles were largely positive, with photos of them dancing, laughing, clearly enamored with each other. Marcus's phone exploded with calls and messages, congratulations from friends, interview requests from magazines, inquiries from business associates. He ignored most of them, instead focusing on Olivia, who was reading the articles on her phone with an expression somewhere between amusement and disbelief. They called me a mystery woman, she said, looking up at him. I have a LinkedIn profile and everything. Give them a day. They'll figure out who you are and then write extensive profiles. Should I be worried? Marcus pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Probably a little. But Olivia, I promise you, I'll be right here through all of it. Every stupid article, every invasive question, every moment you need to vent about the ridiculousness of it all. Good, because I'm going to need that. She set down her phone, snuggling into him. But Marcus, it's worth it. You're worth it. As predicted, within 48 hours the press had identified Olivia and were running features about her work, her background, her relationship with Marcus. Mostly the coverage was positive. People seemed charmed by her small-town roots and impressed by her professional accomplishments. But there were also the inevitable negative pieces, the speculation about gold digging and social climbing, the comparisons to Marcus's previous dates. Marcus watched Olivia carefully during this period, ready to step in if it became too much. But she handled it with remarkable grace, largely ignoring the coverage and focusing on her work. When one particularly nasty piece questioned her motives for dating Marcus, she simply shrugged and said, "People who know me know the truth. That's all that matters." Her equanimity amazed him. "How are you so unaffected by all this?" "I'm not unaffected," Olivia corrected. "Some of it stings, especially the stuff that's just made up. But Marcus, I knew what I was signing up for. And compared to having you in my life, some mean articles are a small price to pay." 6 months into their relationship, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with this woman. She'd become his partner in every sense of the word, challenging him, supporting him, making him laugh, calling him out when he was being unreasonable. She'd integrated seamlessly into his life while maintaining her own identity and career, and she'd shown him what a real partnership could look like. He spent weeks planning the proposal, wanting it to be perfect. Not some grand public gesture, that wasn't them, but something meaningful and personal. He finally settled on a plan, recruiting Thomas and Claire to help pull it off. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Thomas and Claire's first wedding anniversary, Marcus invited Olivia to meet him at the estate where they'd met. He told her they were attending the anniversary party, but when she arrived, she found the gardens lit with thousands of candles, a string quartet playing softly, and Marcus waiting for her in the gazebo where they'd had their first real conversation. "Marcus," Olivia's voice was breathless as she walked toward him. "What is all this?" "This is me, hoping you'll say yes." Marcus took her hands, his heart pounding. "Olivia, 6 months ago, I stood in a chapel and watched you walk down the aisle, and my entire world changed. I didn't believe in love at first sight, but you made me a believer. You've made me believe in a lot of things I thought were impossible. That someone could love me for who I am rather than what I have. That I could build a life that's about more than just business and success. That I could be truly happy." He released one of her hands to pull a small velvet box from his pocket, then dropped to one knee. Olivia's free hand flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. "You've shown me what love really means," Marcus continued, his own voice thick with emotion. "You've made me want to be better, to do more, to live fuller. You've given me a home, not a place but a feeling, the feeling I get when you walk into a room, when you laugh at my terrible jokes, when you fall asleep on my shoulder during movie nights. Olivia Carter, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. Will you marry me?" He opened the box, revealing a ring he designed himself. A sapphire the color of her eyes, surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Simple but stunning, just like her. Olivia was crying too hard to speak at first, just nodding frantically. Finally, she managed to choke out, "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Marcus stood, sliding the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and then she was in his arms, kissing him through their tears. Around them, hidden in the shadows, Thomas and Claire and both sets of parents emerged, clapping and cheering. Marcus had wanted their closest loved ones to share this moment, to witness the beginning of their next chapter. "You're terrible at keeping secrets," Olivia laughed when she saw everyone. "How long have you all been hiding?" "About 20 minutes, Claire admitted, rushing forward to hug her best friend. "I've been dying watching you walk up that path. I nearly ruined the surprise 3 times. The celebration that followed was intimate and perfect. Champagne and laughter, stories and toasts. The people who mattered most sharing their joy." Margaret Blackwood pulled Marcus aside at one point, her eyes wet with happy tears. "Your father would be so proud of you," she said softly. Marcus's father had died when he was young, too young to remember him clearly, but his mother spoke of him often. Not for the money or the success, but for this. For finding someone who sees your heart. "I love her, Mom. More than I knew it was possible to love someone." "I know, baby. It shows in everything you do." She kissed his cheek. "Be good to her. Be the man I raised you to be." "I will. I promise." Later, when the others had gone and it was just Marcus and Olivia in the candlelit garden, she turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," Marcus said, pulling her close. Why the sapphire? Don't get me wrong, I love it. But everyone expected you'd go with a traditional diamond. Marcus smiled, touching the ring on her finger gently. Diamonds are what people expect from someone like me. Flashy, expensive, conventional. But you've never been impressed by conventional. The sapphire reminded me of your eyes, yes, but also of you. Strong, enduring, beautiful in a way that doesn't need to shout for attention. And blue has always been my favorite color. Ever since I was a kid. It felt right, giving you something that meant something to both of us. Olivia's eyes filled with fresh tears. How do you always know exactly what to say? I don't. Half the time I'm terrified I'm gonna mess this up. But with you I want to try. I want to always try to find the right words, to show you how much you mean to me. You're doing pretty well so far. She kissed him softly. So, future husband of mine, what happens now? Now we plan a wedding. Or we elope. Or we do whatever you want because I don't care about the details. I just care about you. We should probably do an actual wedding, Olivia said thoughtfully. Our mothers would never forgive us if we eloped. But Marcus, I don't want anything huge or ostentatious. I don't need a magazine spread or a celebrity-filled guest list. What do you want? The people we love, somewhere beautiful, and you waiting for me at the end of the aisle. That's it. That's all I need. Marcus felt his heart swell. That sounds perfect. They set the wedding for the following spring, giving them time to plan but not so long that they drive themselves crazy with anticipation. Olivia insisted on being involved in every decision, refusing to hire a wedding planner despite Marcus's offers. This is our wedding, she said firmly. I want it to be us, not some cookie-cutter society event. So they planned it together, late nights poring over seating charts and menu options, weekends visiting venues and tasting cakes, countless discussions about flowers and music and vows. Marcus found himself enjoying the process far more than he'd expected. Each decision was a negotiation, a collaboration, a tiny preview of the life they'd build together. They chose a small vineyard in wine country for the venue, intimate but beautiful, with rolling hills and sunset views. The guest list was kept deliberately small, just family and close friends. Olivia designed elements of the ceremony herself, incorporating architectural features that made the space feel both grand and welcoming. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. Marcus's company was going through a major expansion, requiring long hours and difficult negotiations. Olivia was managing 3 major projects simultaneously, including a prestigious library commission that could define her career. But they made it work, supporting each other through stress and exhaustion, celebrating victories and commiserating over setbacks. I barely see you lately, Olivia said one evening when Marcus arrived home well past midnight from a business trip. She was still awake, working on drawings at the kitchen table. I know. I'm sorry. Marcus dropped his bag and went to her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. This expansion is eating my life. But it's almost done. 2 more weeks, and things should calm down. Don't apologize. I've been just as crazy with the library project. She leaned back against him, sighing. I just miss you. I miss you too. He pressed a kiss to her temple. After the wedding, let's take a real honeymoon. 2 weeks. No phones. No work. Just us. Where would we go? Anywhere you want. Paris? Bali? Antarctica? I don't care as long as I'm with you. Antarctica? Olivia laughed. That's romantic. Hey, I've heard the penguins are lovely this time of year. They ended up compromising on Italy. 2 weeks exploring villages and vineyards, art and architecture, food and history. Olivia was already planning which buildings she wanted to see, while Marcus was secretly arranging private tours and exclusive experiences. As the wedding approached, Marcus found himself surprisingly nervous. Not about marrying Olivia, he'd never been more certain of anything, but about the ceremony itself, about standing in front of everyone they loved and expressing feelings he'd spent most of his life guarding carefully. You're overthinking this, Thomas told him the night before the wedding. They were at the rehearsal dinner, watching Olivia laugh with Claire and her parents. Just speak from the heart tomorrow. Tell her what she means to you. What if I can't find the words? What if I freeze up there? Then you look at her, and the words will come. Marcus, I've watched you give speeches to thousands of people without breaking a sweat. You can handle talking to one woman who already loves you. This is different. This matters more than any speech I've ever given. Exactly. Which is why it'll be perfect. Thomas clapped his shoulder. Trust yourself. Trust what you feel for her. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The vineyard bathed in golden morning light. Marcus woke early, too anxious to sleep, and went for a run through the hills to clear his head. When he returned, Thomas was waiting with coffee and a knowing smile. Ready to do this? More than ready. Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. Is it too early to get dressed? It's 8 in the morning and the ceremony isn't until 4. Yes, it's too early. The hours crawled by, filled with preparations and small rituals. Marcus's mother helped him with his cufflinks, the same ones his father had worn at his own wedding. Thomas made terrible jokes to ease the tension. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he adjusted his tie for the 100th time. Finally, it was time. Marcus took his place at the end of the aisle, the vineyard and hills stretching out behind him, their guests seated in neat rows before him. The string quartet began to play, and his breath caught. Claire came down the aisle first, radiant in her bridesmaid dress, giving Marcus an encouraging wink. Then the music shifted, and everyone stood. Olivia appeared, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was wearing a simple gown of ivory silk that draped elegantly over her figure, with delicate lace at the shoulders and a flowing train. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves over her shoulders, with small flowers tucked throughout. She carried a bouquet of peonies and garden roses, and she was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. But it was her expression that undid him. The pure joy on her face, the tears already glistening in her eyes, the smile that was just for him. She was walking toward him, choosing this life together, and Marcus felt his own tears begin to fall. Tom Carter placed Olivia's hand in Marcus's, leaning close to whisper, "Take care of my girl." "Always," Marcus promised. They turned to face each other, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. The officiant was speaking, but Marcus barely heard the words. He was lost in Olivia's eyes, in the feeling of her hands in his, in the magnitude of this moment. "Marcus and Olivia have chosen to write their own vows," the officiant said, and Marcus took a deep breath. "Olivia," he began, his voice shaking slightly, "6 months ago, I didn't believe in love at first sight. I didn't believe someone could walk into your life and change everything in a moment. But then I saw you walk down an aisle much like this one, and I knew with absolute certainty that my life would never be the same. You've taught me what it means to be truly seen, truly known, truly loved. You've shown me that success means nothing without someone to share it with, that vulnerability is strength, that home isn't a place but a person. I promise to support your dreams as fiercely as you support mine. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your safe place. I promise to love you not just on the easy days, but on the hard days when love is a choice we make. I promise to always see you, not the architect or the perfectionist or the woman the press writes about, but you, Olivia, in all your complicated, brilliant, beautiful truth. I promise to build a life with you that's about more than success or money or status. A life about love and laughter and the quiet moments in between. I will love you today, tomorrow, and every day after, until my last breath and beyond." Tears were streaming down Olivia's face, and several guests were crying openly, but her smile was radiant. She squeezed his hands, steadying herself before speaking. "Marcus, when I met you, I thought I had my life figured out. I had my career, my friends, my 5-year plan. I didn't have room for complications, for the kind of overwhelming feeling that makes you want to rearrange everything. But then you looked at me in that chapel, really looked at me, and I felt like you saw parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. You've challenged me to dream bigger, to believe I deserve more, to trust that love doesn't have to be practical to be real. You've shown me that extraordinary doesn't mean flashy or expensive, It means someone who remembers how you take your coffee, who reads your work emails when you're stressed just to help you think through problems, who holds you when you cry and laughs at your terrible puns. I promise to be your shelter in the storms life brings. I promise to challenge you, support you, and call you out when you're being ridiculous. I promise to love every version of you. The brilliant CEO, the awkward man who fidgets with his cufflinks, the son who calls his mother every Sunday, the friend who drops everything for the people he loves. I promise to build a home with you, not a house but a feeling of safety and joy and belonging. I promise to choose you every single day, in big ways and small ways, for the rest of our lives. You are my greatest adventure, Marcus Blackwood, and I can't wait to see where we go together. There wasn't a dry eye in the vineyard, including Marcus's. The officiant had to clear his throat several times before continuing with the ceremony. They exchanged rings. Marcus's was a simple platinum band engraved with the coordinates of the gazebo where he'd proposed. And then came the words they'd both been waiting for. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Marcus, you may kiss your bride. Marcus cupped Olivia's face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs, and kissed her softly. The guests erupted in applause and cheers, but Marcus was only aware of Olivia. Her lips on his, her hands gripping his shoulders, the joy radiating from her. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, the officiant presented them to their guests. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood. They walked back down the aisle together, hands clasped tightly, grinning like fools. As soon as they were out of sight of the guests, Marcus pulled Olivia into his arms again, kissing her thoroughly. We did it, he murmured against her lips. You're my wife. You're my husband, Olivia replied, wonder in her voice. How did I get this lucky? I'm the lucky one. Olivia Blackwood. I love you so much. I love you too. Now come on. We have a reception to get through before we can escape to our honeymoon suite. The reception was everything they'd hoped for. Intimate and joyful, filled with laughter and dancing and heartfelt toasts. Thomas gave a speech that had everyone crying with laughter, telling embarrassing stories from Marcus's college days. Claire spoke about watching Olivia fall in love, about how happy it made her to see her best friend so radiant. Margaret Blackwood simply stood and raised her glass, saying, To my son and his beautiful bride, may you always be this happy, this in love, this right for each other. Marcus and Olivia had their first dance to a jazz standard, swaying close while their guests watched with knowing smiles. As the song ended and others joined them on the dance floor, Marcus whispered in Olivia's ear, Ready to start forever. I've been ready since the moment I met you, Olivia replied, and kissed him as the sun set over the vineyard, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Later that night, after the last guest had departed and they were finally alone in their honeymoon suite, Marcus and Olivia stood on the balcony looking out at the stars. Olivia had changed into a simple silk nightgown, her feet bare, her hair tumbling loose. Marcus had shed his jacket and tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. They looked like any newlyweds, drunk on love and possibility. What are you thinking about? Olivia asked, leaning against his chest. About how 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I had success, money, respect, everything I'd worked for. But I was lonely, even if I didn't want to admit it. And then you walked into my life and showed me what I'd been missing. What was that? This. You. Us. Marcus tightened his arms around her. A partner, a best friend, someone to build a life with. You didn't complete me, I was already whole. But you made me better, happier, more alive. Olivia turned in his arms to face him. You did the same for me. I thought I was happy with my life, but it was such a small life. Safe, predictable. You challenged me to want more, to risk more, to love more. We're going to have an amazing life together, Marcus said with absolute certainty. Not because of my money or your talent, but because we're a team, because we choose each other, support each other, love each other. Yes, we are. Olivia smiled up at him. So, husband of mine, what's our first adventure? Well, we have a 2-week honeymoon in Italy starting tomorrow. After that, I was thinking we start looking for a house. Something with space for your home office and room to grow. Room to grow. Olivia's eyes sparkled with mischief. Marcus felt his heart skip. I mean, not immediately, but someday. If you want. Kids, a dog, the whole domestic thing. I know we haven't really talked about it, but... Olivia silenced him with a kiss. I want all of it. Someday. But for now, I just want you. You have me, Marcus promised. Always. They stayed on that balcony long into the night, talking about their dreams and plans, about the life they'd build together. They talked about the house they'd find, the charities they'd support together, the places they'd travel. They talked about Olivia's next big project and Marcus's plans to step back from day-to-day operations to focus on innovation. They talked about dinner parties with friends and quiet Sunday mornings and all the ordinary extraordinary moments that would make up their marriage. And as the stars wheeled overhead and the night grew late, Marcus reflected on the strange, wonderful path that had led him here. He'd built an empire, achieved more than he'd ever dreamed possible, been hailed as one of the most successful men of his generation. But none of it compared to this, to holding his wife in his arms, to knowing that someone saw him, really saw him and loved him anyway. Love at first sight. He still couldn't quite believe it was real, that it had happened to him. But as Olivia pressed closer, murmuring sleepy words of love, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that it was the truest thing he'd ever experienced. From the moment she'd walked down that aisle, he'd been hers. And now, by some miracle, she was his. Forever started now, and Marcus couldn't wait to live every moment of it.